You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
2 for the price of 1. We're always striving to bring you the best bargains this side of a Ferengi trading post at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. And that must mean it's time for Mission Log Live. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Holly Amos. And tonight we are back to discuss Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Episode 11. There's so many numbers right now, you guys, because we're going to not just do Rosetta today. There's more. We're also going to do Picard Season 2, Episode 1, The Stargazer.
Yes, so the first half of the show tonight will be about Disco, and then 45 minutes later, so we're going 90 minutes tonight instead of our usual 60, 45 minutes later, we'll switch over to Picard. That's the way it's going to work.
Yay. So get your questions and comments ready. You guys know how to do it. You can click on the Zoom link. You can call 669-900-6833. You'll enter the meeting code and the password you see on the screen, and then you'll be in the Earl Green room. Yeah. And also, you guys have to let him know what you're here to discuss, like which one, which thing, or both. Hey,
and look, and if it's both, I tell you what, talk to us about Disco and then go away and then come back when we talk about Picard. It'll be fun.
You can just hang out in the Earl Green room.
Hang out in the Earl Green. Who doesn't want to do that? That's the best part of the show. Everybody else, you're missing out if you don't call in. All right. Well, we are going to be very efficient with our time tonight. So I will quickly say hello to some of the folks in the chat. There's Paul. I'm sure there's another Paul to be found at some point. There's Jane. There's Miles. There's Cosmo. There's Alan. Let's see here. There's Rick. There's Chris, there's Dominic, and Carlos, of course. We've got to see Carlos in there. There's other Dave Takechi, or is he Dave Prime? I don't know. We got to work that out someday. There's Scott Palm. Great to see him tonight. And welcome everybody. And like I said, we don't want to waste too much time tonight, so I'll very quickly give you the update on what is coming up in Mission Log Land and Roddenberry Podcast this week. This week on Mission Log, got to take a second here. It is a momentous week. On Thursday, we say hello to Star Trek Voyager with Season 1, Episode 1, Caretaker. That is on Thursday, March 10th. Yes.
That is my favorite Star Trek pilot, by the way.
Really? You know what? Yeah. I'm not going to spoil it here. Norm and I had a really great conversation about it, and I look forward to everybody chiming in, and I look forward to hearing what you had to say about it off air. So, and then I look forward to checking in with you later, Holly, about Chakotay. Oh, okay.
Why is he the first character that we see?
All right. And then this week, Mission Log Prodigy and Mission Log The Orville are off to give us a big welcome to Voyager, not to mention tonight's double bill of Discovery and Picard. So we just wanted to, make a little room there. So for everything that's happening, make sure you stay in touch at podcasts.roddenberry.com, where all of our shows are listed. And now, okay, you're doing your thing. You're calling in, you're hitting the button, and you're doing all that stuff. Now you're going to let me do the shortest recap in Mission Log history.
Is it?
It probably is.
Oh, that's really short. Okay, go. All
right, we're going to try to hold all of these. If we do the main Mission Log this short, that would be a miracle. So, all right, here we go. Star Trek Discovery, Rosetta. Time is ticking for the crew of the Discovery, not to mention a good chunk of the populations of Earth and Navarre. Sitting near that desolate former gas giant and its local star in a Dyson ring, a landing party takes a shuttle down to the surface to investigate. Burnham, Saru, Detmer, and Culber make the perilous journey to find a planet absolutely wrecked by asteroids and abandoned more than 1,000 years ago. They do find a huge, mysterious ruin, some place of enormous importance, but before they can even get inside, Saru is struck with an intense fear response at a wailing, fiery vision. It soon passes to Culber, even to the captain, as they make their way inside. The only one not experiencing it is Detmer, who didn't come into direct contact with the unidentified hydrocarbon dust that is everywhere. She resets their EVA suits to filter it out. All good. Meanwhile, on Disco, the delegates have their own concerns, and President Rillick is trying to hold it all together. What she and they don't know is that Book and Tarka have snuck aboard Disco from Book's cloaked ship with a crazy plan to go full-on Millennium Falcon and ride this thing secretly all the way to where the 10C are keeping their DMA power source. It's a fine plan until Book gets the idea to try to talk to General Nadoye and into spying on Burnham for him, and Tarka gets caught by Jet Reno. Back on the planet, the party discover that they are in a giant nursery, a place built to protect the 10C's young, meaning that they must value life. On a hunch, Burnham turns off her suit's filter, and this time the hydrocarbon is a euphoric, loving vision, a feeling that is happy, but rare for some like Saru and Detmer. They can only all surmise that the 10C have complex emotional lives, and like some other beings, they communicate with an emotional exchange. This first step of the mission, to find potential common ground with the 10C, is a success, and the party returns to the ship. Onward to make first contact, a much more hopeful experience, so it's all looking pretty good. Except for Jet Reno, who somehow found herself on Book ship taken hostage by Tarka.
Rude.
The end. So rude. So rude. You know what I liked about that, by the way, and I'm so glad we got callers lined up right now, ready to go, and we're going to get right into that so fast. Something that I liked about that is what we didn't see happen.
Right. Because I was like, we moved on real quick. She finds him, says, I hope I didn't ruin a surprise party. And then it goes on to like, what else is going on? And there's like no sort, but we're still on Discovery, but there's no like commotion. There's no security being called. And I was like, what happened?
But see, that's what's so cool because, Jet Reno is very cool, very collected and tough. Tarka, obviously a very smart guy and usually plays it very cool. And you just leave that to your imagination. Just something happened and the tables got turned.
Also, just very excited that we get to see Jet.
Yeah.
So this must have been like when she was available to shoot, and they're just like, "We're going to have you taken hostage at the end of the series."
Yeah, right. That just way fun. By the way, in the chat, and we're going to get to these callers here any second now. Got to say, Bob Amos checking in, Nick DeGood checking in as well. So great to see you. And then Miles echoing something that we talked about. Well, the last time I was here, I was not here last week. Miles saying, I think Saru and Trina make a cute couple. Everybody
thinks that.
They do. That is a well-crafted, well-earned relationship on this show. So let us go to our first caller. So glad to see. It is Valeria. Welcome to the show.
We were sideways for a while.
Wait, you're muted though. We don't want you to be muted. We want to hear everything you have to say.
Here we are. Yep.
Excellent. Welcome.
Unmuted and unsideways.
Yes.
All
right.
I don't have a ton to say about this week, but I did have just a couple of things that I wanted to say about last week when I was going to bed at 6.
Okay, fair.
I just loved that Tarka section. Like, it was what got me. Like, the week before, I was calling and saying, yeah, I don't know. I just don't know if disco is for me this season. And then we got that. And I was just like, oh my goodness.
But it's so funny. It's so funny that you bring that up because since I was not here for the live show last week, and I was kind of late catching up on the episode before we went on the air, Holly and I were talking about that, and that was a character moment, a character arc that I really liked, that I really appreciated. Mm-hmm. And I figured at some point they had to redeem Tarka, or not necessarily redeem, but they had to give him some depth, some emotional life for us to ground ourselves with. And I thought they did that pretty effectively. Holly took up the opposite position, which I thought was also quite valid. So, Holly, let's get into it.
Well, I mean, I talked about it. We talked about it at length last week, but
okay. And I heard that on the.
Tarka is a super interesting character, wildly into him, want to know more about this mysterious reason why he's so fixated on getting to home, is what he's calling it, right? And it's,
Por favor.
The context that they gave, this relationship that they attempted to flesh out in a singular episode was not my jam. I feel like that we should have been getting context for several episodes, not just the one. It felt forced. I'm glad that they did give him context. It just wasn't enough for me, and it was too quick. It wasn't enough time for me to sort of meander on what he must be feeling.
See, I feel
and then there was nothing about it in this episode either, right?
Okay, but for me, like, part of where I'm coming at it from is that when he first told the story to Book the very first time, with like the very bare minimum level of detail, I was like, I hate that. I need him to be lying to be satisfied with this. Like, I need this to be a lie because he thinks that it's going to be what gets Book on board with him. But then with the way they executed it, I was just like, that is literally the only way they could have made me satisfied with him telling the truth to Book there.
Is he telling the truth though?
We still don't know that.
I was like, he could still be lying. There's no one corroborating his story. He could still be lying.
Yes, but also Norman said what I was thinking, which was just, wow, the romance. And like, okay, also just as a huge fan of The Final Frontier, when Oros was describing Kyle Elise, I was just like, por favor. or as more Trekkies would know it, Shakari. But yeah, no, I just really enjoyed that. But more importantly, I have a Kovich speculation.
Bring it,
okay.
Bring it. Or as we like to call him, Professor David Cronenberg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So leading up to that episode, I was thinking, wow, I was just thinking about how weird it is that he's wearing a 20th/21st century style business suit. It's like if some government official today were going to work every day in chainmail. Like, it's very anachronistic.
And he's also making, like Gilligan's Island references.
Yes. And then he makes the Gilligan's Island reference that they made a point of no one else in the room getting.
Right. And he's playing a crossword puzzle. Or he had
taught a crossword puzzle to somebody.
Yeah.
Thank God it wasn't Wordle. I was like, no.
Okay. So here's my hot theory.
Okay.
I think that he's a friend of Gary Seven.
Whoa. Whoa. Interesting.
That's a little bit of a deep cut.
That is a deep
because there was some level of time travel shenanigans going on Gary's end as well as the Enterprise's end.
Yeah.
And so I just think that he is from the same planet as Gary Seven.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, that is a really interesting idea. Whatever it is, we know that Kovich is not necessarily what we've been told. Like, there is more than meets the eye there for sure. So it's just a question of what. And I've seen some other kind of interesting speculation online, like, oh, he's from an alternate universe, or he's from the past, or whatever, because how else would he know about these things? So I very much look forward to whatever additional reveals, although I hope they don't reveal too much. Like, if that's going to be an ongoing character into the next season, I don't want to just be like, here's the thing to blow your mind, and then we're done with that.
But are you doing?
Absolutely.
I feel like you also don't want him to leave. Like, if they blow our minds,
absolutely
and then, like, goes back to where he's from,
you're
going to be really disappointed.
I'll be really upset by that. Yeah.
No, I'm definitely putting him in the same bucket as the Tholians, where any answer that we ever get about him should raise at least 2 to 3 more questions, like what they did with the Tholians in DS9.
Very good. That is a great point. I totally agree with you there. Very cool. Just a couple other little things that I'll reference here from the chat. And some of these, I apologize, have kind of disappeared, and they're a little harder to
It's going
to grab,
fast.
It is going fast. I believe it was Chris who said that he said Tarka is a plot point, not a character. And okay, so I would take some exception to that. I feel like what is interesting about him are the ideas that we haven't necessarily explored. So he was very effective in presenting, being part of that debate about what do we do? Do we use this weapon? Do we just go in and protect ourselves first, or do we try to have first contact? I thought that was
he was an important part of that conversation.
Yeah, it was a necessary way to have that conversation, right?
Well, because he gave pushback, right? Like it was, you have to have somebody give some pushback for the sake of storytelling.
Right. And then our other characters get to, like we saw on the shuttle a couple of weeks ago, it's just like, oh, okay, they're still talking about this, they're still debating this. It's not just we're all on the same page now. So I thought that was cool. And then the thing that I feel like we didn't really get out of last week's episode with that reveal with Tarka, and so interesting, Valeria, that you said Shakari, because to me it was less about who really is Tarka or who really is Oros, but it was this idea of people who were convinced of an idea. They were convinced of a belief that they wanted to have because they were in such a bad circumstance. And that it sort of grounded them a little bit. It gave them an emotional life, and you were sort of pulling for them. You didn't want it to all end with this desolation of that place. So I thought all of that was worthwhile. But I do totally agree with the assessment that Discovery is not so good at this always, which is you spend a lot of time on plot. You spend a lot of time on the key characters who are part of that plot. And then as you get toward the end of the season, it's like the writers go, oh, wait, well, we forgot to put in this really important stuff.
His motivation, his entire motivation.
So now we need to just cram it all into one episode, like we did with Arium and fighting Control. And it was like, okay, well, if we'd been given all that stuff with Arium leading up to the end of the season, then it would have been very cool. But Discovery doesn't necessarily do that. So I'm a little on the fence there, but I felt like emotionally there was some satisfaction from that, and then I really enjoyed what we got out of this episode. Valeria, any other thoughts before we move to our next caller here?
Just really excited to see where next week goes, which is a nice change of pace with this season of Disco.
You know what? I feel like I treat many of our Disco discussions like that, where the first few episodes, I'm like, come on, stop biting off more than we can reasonably chew. Stop trying to cram all this in here. And then as it goes along, you feel like they pump the brakes a little bit. We get to spend time on a planet. We get to spend time figuring something out, and I get a little more open to it. So I hope that we're all satisfied with the end of this season. Bumpy bumps in the road and all. Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Well, take care, and we'll see you next week. Okay.
Yeah. See you in a bit for Picard, in fact.
Okay. All right. Fair. Click that button. We'll see you in a minute. All right.
See you in a minute.
Okay. So let's go to our next caller, and it is Chris, all the way from, wait a minute.
Chateau Picard.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, when I was on location.
You were there.
I was there.
Oh, you took that picture?
Yeah, I took this picture. Yeah, this was out. We're out in the vineyards, out by the data tree.
I'm very sad that Chateau Picard and the vineyards are no longer my hometown, because they were in the final episode. Cool. The final episode of we're not going to talk about Picard. Final episode of TNG was shot in the valley.
Okay, yeah.
And now it's north of LA. Anyways, all right, we're talking about Discovery though.
Sorry. All right, there we go. All right.
So on what you guys were saying, time management has always been an issue, but I think they've seeded out a couple of really interesting things this week, one of which is this idea that the finale is going to be about like recognizing compassion or having the squid people. Like that's like the answer is not fight them. The answer is like talk to them, which I think is really cool. And the other sort of minor thing that they sort of seeded was whatever is going on between Adira and Detmer. Like, that seems fun. They have good chemistry. I'm not sure what's going on, but yeah, especially the main point of like talking to the 10C and not fighting them. I think that being the finale could be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree, and that was, you know, one of the bigger notes that I took about this episode. First of all, I thought it was such an interesting idea to explore communication, not as just we have to sit down and talk to each other, but we have to actually learn how they communicate, which might be a totally different paradigm. It has, you know, might have to do with chemical, emotional responses, finding common ground, and it's sort of so simplistic and it's so obvious, but it is so Star Trek. It is such a hallmark of Star Trek to allow the characters to step back from their preconceptions and go, oh, wait, we actually need to change our perspective to meet these people where they're coming from. And I love how they're exploring it. I love how they're taking a little bit of time to actually talk about it, get us as the viewers involved in it to understand it. And look, you know, I've had many criticisms of Star Trek Discovery, but I really want to point out where they get it right. And I feel like this is one of the places where they got it right. If you're doing a season about turning fear into communication and turning this, you know, existential dread into an opportunity, I think it's great. And it absolutely sits up there with some of the best expressions, some of the best Star Trek stories that have ever been.
I'm interested to see how like it's going to unfold in terms of our because the first thing that I thought when they were sort of discovering the emotional aspect of this species, discovering that, my first thought was, where's a betazoid when you need one? Like a betazoid would be like super helpful in this scenario, especially if this species does not, if they find that species doesn't audibly speak.
That'll be interesting. Yeah.
So because that's what I was gathering, like the focus that they have of emotion makes me feel like they're not audible.
Yeah, it seems like it's all chemicals. Like, I mean, imagine if you're in a gas giant that's full of gas, you like emit the whatever they call them, and they sort of float around.
They even talk about like, you know, species on other planets, and like specifically she mentioned bees who sort of communicate via pheromones, which is completely not audible. It's all chemical.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see when we meet them how they actually communicate.
Now, Stamets said that the dots detected 16 different hydrocarbon chains that presumably represent, you know, different emotions, different sort of mental states for the 10C. I think it's a fascinating idea that that's how they communicate. Might be a little bit limited. You know, if you're trying to
feel like it's very limited,
you're trying to build a giant structure that's a nursery to take care of your children. Like, you have to have ways to measure and, you know, build and do other things.
I feel like there also has to be an allowance for, I mean, as an emotional species ourselves, there's sometimes where you feel emotions that conflict at the same time, and it's wildly confusing. So for them to limit themselves to 16, is there any like sort of crossover in those?
Yeah, I would imagine it's sort of like going to the sort of chemistry angle is kind of like you can chain the different hydrocarbons together, that maybe you have 16 base ones, and you know that from there, like you have 4 or 16, however amino acids you have in your body, but you can combine them to make all sorts of different things. So maybe it's that. Also, I like that scene because they were like, these hydrocarbons, and we're testing them, and I'm just imagining Stamets and Adira just doing lines of hydrocarbons in the engineering bay. Like, what does this one feel like? Okay, give it a go. Write it down. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, give me the good stuff. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. But you know, it comes back to this. This is the other thing that I wrote down because I thought it was such a good. It might have been too on the nose, but I like it when Star Trek can be on the nose and give it value. That last scene between Burnham and Culber sitting in the captain's ready room having the tea or coffee or whatever they were having, and just wrote down these 3 exchanges. Sometimes empathy can be uncomfortable. And it's the only way to connect, to find common ground in communication. What if they know what they've done and they don't care? How do we connect with a species like that? And it was so obvious, just so very clear that, they're talking about, okay, what do? You find common ground. Look at the world around us today. There are so many fractures in people in the world today on so many levels, political, social, religious, etc. The only possible way to break through that is through empathy. It is through finding common ground to at least start that level of communication. And here's, Culber throwing the wrench into the works, which is, but what do you do then? What do you do next? And that's what I'm curious to see play out in the next couple of episodes, because you can get to a point where, okay, we've tried everything. I always like to think about Picard saying you negotiate, and that if it doesn't work, you negotiate again, and then you negotiate again, and you keep negotiating until you reach that compromise.
Diplomacy can only go so far if the species you're trying to deal with doesn't care that they're destroying entire planets. And I think the reason why Burnham is convinced that there's going to be empathy there is because they were on presumably a planet that the species, lived on for however long, and it was destroyed. So how can they not understand these other species not wanting their planets to be destroyed?
Yeah,
I think that's where her confidence comes from. But I mean, Culber, he's not wrong.
No, he's
what if they don't care?
Yeah. Because again, we could be the ants in the anthill who just, just a nuisance and annoyance and something can easily be dealt with and with no conscience, So
termites.
See, there you go. Hate those things. Yeah. All right.
Just smoke bomb them or whatever. I've never had termites, so I don't know what they do. Put those giant
something
tents over houses, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, they could see every other species as that.
Yeah. Hey, before we get to our next caller, Chris, any other thoughts on tonight's discussion?
Yeah, just one little bit, because I know this is important to you, John. We got another checkbox on the David Cronenberg lore sheet today. He likes crosswords.
Yes.
I like crosswords.
See? Love it. The more of that. By the way, I wrote this down also in my notes. Where is my Linus action figure? And where is my Dr. David Cronenberg action figure? Because
was Cronenberg looking to let them make an action figure of his character?
He better damn well. Yes. Yes. That's what is that so much to ask? I mean, look, you've got so much Star Trek licensing going on now, so many new figures coming out. I don't think that is too much to ask for in like a wave 3. Okay.
Oh, okay. You don't even need it in wave 1. Okay.
No, because wave 1's been announced. We know, that's fine. I feel like there are other, uniformed characters that we'll probably get before we get a Dr. David Cronenberg, but at some point they have to, with action tie and removable glasses. Yes.
Action tie.
Yep. So, all right, cool. Well, thanks so much, Chris, for calling in, and we will see you soon. All right.
Yeah, you will see me very soon, in fact.
I can't wait. All right. Take it easy, man.
See ya. Bye.
Cool. All right.
Alan.
Yes.
Oh,
there he is, Alan in front of the preview poster, the 2008 edition preview poster for JJ Trek 09.
That was when they thought it was going to come out in December, a holiday film. And they pushed it back to be a summer blockbuster.
Of course. Well, I just wanted to show my support for Star Trek. See, there's the Delta. This is totally about Star Trek and not anything else.
There you go. Thank you for being very clear about that. And
absolutely.
Just like they were very clear about the support for Star Trek by putting the Delta on literally every surface that could be printed or touched by human hands.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no perspective, so I can't get closer. But yeah, you can see them if you get really close.
Now I can. Oh yeah, perfectly. Yeah, there. Thank you. All right, Alan. So, what is on your mind tonight about disco?
Another solid episode. I liked the introduction of the I'm trying to think of what I want to call them. I've kind of settled on the BF Skinner spores. You know, the ones that make you feel like you've had a wonderful childhood.
Yeah, there you go.
Man, that's better than crack. You know, I bar none. I think, you know, death sticks, whatever other fictional drugs might be out there. I think those spores have just shot up to the top of the list of things that will absolutely be abused in our future.
Now wait a minute.
Should they survive?
Should they say, okay, but wait a minute. Is there like a kind of cruelty there, though? Like that reaction that Detmer had was like,
true.
oh, this is what I didn't feel with my family. This is what I did. And I would also say Burnham. I mean, look, you know, she was brought up by Sarek, and he is, you know, well, we've talked about his fatherhood skills.
But she also had Amanda. Like,
yeah, okay. All right.
She wasn't fully, it wasn't a full Vulcan household.
True. Well, thank goodness. Yeah.
And she does have memories, and you know, from that short trek, you know, it wasn't like she was a baby when her parents were killed / shot to the future, whatever, you know. You know, I get lost in the canon like everybody else, but you know, she has happy memories of growing up with them too. But yeah, I guess there is an element of ennui that could be a part of the spore experience as well. You know, maybe that's not a particularly good trip, but
yeah. Or in the case of somebody like Detmer or Saru, or they might just want more, and then we're back to huffing spores. You know, on Omicron Ceti 3. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Culber seemed to be lingering there for a little while. I'm like,
yeah.
What's that about?
Powerful stuff. Yeah.
But,
what else?
But yeah, that was good. I kind of I bristle a little bit about the, you know, are we just wasting time here? Because they, from my, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can't get into the hyperfield anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we, you know, kvetching about, you know, sending people on, you know, a fact-finding mission, even if you think it's kind of pointless.
I mean, they literally have no facts at that point.
Yeah, there's no facts.
Yeah, a fact-finding mission, finding any fact would be of value.
Fact. And I think they found 2 fairly relevant facts, and that's mission success. You know, and God bless her. We were talking about uniforms earlier. Man, I really want to take General Ndoye seriously, but she's dressed like, let's face it, she's dressed like an air steward. That is Delta 1987 dress uniform, if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, right.
But the new EV suits are cool.
Oh yeah.
They're rad.
Hey, I love Tron. I'm a big fan of those suits.
There you go.
Can you guys, you know what I was thinking about when Saru's character started having the trip? Like, I was like, this for first of all, Doug is a phenomenal actor. It doesn't matter what he does. He's amazing. But I was like, this could not have been terribly difficult for him. Can you imagine being in that prosthetic makeup and then having that helmet over too?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, that's not great.
Some of that I was like, he's probably not acting.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
I would be extremely claustrophobic and freaking out too.
Well, yeah.
Beautiful suits.
And the callback to the I've sensed the coming of death.
Yeah.
Brilliant. You know, I was like, you know, that's just the perfect way to bring that. And he's the perfect character to do that to. And yeah, I agree that had to be super weird to be in, you know, 3 levels of outfit.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's used to that kind of nonsense by now, given his career, the career that he's had. But was impressive.
Yeah,
that he could handle that.
I do want to go back to something that you mentioned a moment ago, and
Sure.
because when we talked about General Ndoye, I thought, see, this is one of those things where there are so many good and efficient scenes of dialogue in this episode that really just tell you everything you need to know, as realistically, as straightforward as you need to hear it for the believability of the story. And then there are scenes where I feel like it's just insert dramatic tension here. They're getting ready to hop on the shuttle to go down to the planet, and that's the time that President Rillick decides to stop them and say, well, are you sure you should go on this mission? Like, first of all, we need the mission. Second of all, yes, we had hours and hours and hours to discuss that before we even got here. And then for that to be another opportunity for Ndoye and others to question what was going on, it's like, no. No, we're past that point. And as the audience, we already know kind of everybody's feelings on this. So I felt like that was a little out of place. It felt like building tension for really unnecessary reasons at that point.
Well, but it's Discovery's lack of being able to sort of, I don't know how to describe it, plan ahead, because I feel like that scene was important for context of later her still having doubts and Book overhearing that. And then being like, oh, she can be an ally, and then approaching her about that.
But we knew that Ndoye had doubts because she was the one who, back at the Federation Council, she's the one who wanted to go in guns blazing. So you could even reference that. You can even have Ndoye and Tarina at the same table talking about, like, look, we disagree on this, and then boom, here's then you kind of propel forward.
I think it was important for there to be a reminder, and I agree with you that scene, that her saying that at that time felt a little bit out of place, and that reminder could have been in a different way and better.
I kind of agree with both you guys on that point, even up to the scene with Ndoye, and I had to look him up, but Harai, who basically was like, yeah, don't bleep this up, guys.
Why are we beating up on Harai?
I honestly felt so, I got to the point where I felt bad for the actor for having to say that part, because it's just a thankless thing that just exists so he could be berated later in the show.
Come on, he's fine. There are plenty of other Starfleet captains, doctors, any position who have been a little rough around the edges. McCoy, a little brusque, a little inappropriate. Like, come on.
The prickliest character on this cast gave the pep talk this week. Come on.
You're right. You're exactly right. Oh, man. All right. So, Alan, before we jump over here, because we got one more call we want to fit in before we switch gears and we get over to Picard. Yep. Any final thought here on Disco?
No, just, it continues to ramp up pretty nicely. Interesting to see what happens with our captive. Will there be a Reno 911? We'll have to see.
No.
But she had my favorite. She actually had my favorite line of the episode.
Oh yeah. Top notch.
What you mentioned, her little pep talk, and it's a continued conversation about mental health. She said, "No one is always okay, kid, and it takes a hell of a lot of strength to admit when you're not."
Absolutely.
Love that.
On that note, I'll depart. Possibly for now.
Okay. Ooh, the mystery will keep me going through the commercial break. All right. We'll see you in a bit. And rounding out our discussion tonight on Disco, it's Paul, who's wearing entirely the wrong sweatshirt.
So am I. We're both wearing Picard.
You both are. Yes. But that's okay. Well, we'll have you back. What's on your mind tonight, Paul?
Come to the disco, stay for the Picard.
There you
That's where it
go.
goes.
That's the way we like it.
First of all, in the green room, we suggest that the Cronenberg action figure have 2 heads at least for the stern yet, pensive kind of Cronenberg, and then the angry Cronenberg, if you can tell them apart.
That's perfect. That's perfect. It should
Swap the
literally
heads.
just come with 2 that look exactly the same. That would be awesome. Oh my God, yes.
That's awesome. And we got to, I have a shout out for these costumes. So the spacesuits are one thing, but the precursor to the spacesuits, are they like a little too S&M-ish? I mean, they are pretty intensely, they're there at the level. That's the thing you'd see on the Star Trek cruise, I'm sure.
Well, if you're lucky.
Which John just came back from.
That's a whole other show. But yeah, so let me ask you about that, because one of my notes was, I questioned that costume choice because it was just it's like the costume designers felt like, well, we haven't done a mirror universe thing in a while, and we really like to put our actors in armor, so let's do that. But it's before we get to the EV suits. And even before that, like, I don't mind when Star Trek does a visual reference or doing a little creative reuse, but the slow walk down the hallway, I was just like, come on. Like at a certain point, it becomes parody when you do that.
I was right there with you, John. I'm like, where is this going? And then shout out to Detmer for having an episode, that really showcased her. She looks really good in that particular costume.
Yeah.
And as she held her cool through the whole hydrocarbon thing, which as a chemist, I sort of cringe at all that, but
I was wondering what scientists would think of it.
It's like the dust. I mean, pollen makes more sense, but is it to limit the number of pheromones coming out of whatever?
We're going to learn more about it.
Yeah, they walk in it and it got through the suit, but because you didn't step in it, whatever.
Yeah.
Just leave it there.
That was a weird choice. Yeah.
So, and then a Dyson ring I thought was a really cool thing. I want them to go in there. I mean, they're on this sort of half planet, right? That's where they be. So why didn't they go into the Dyson ring?
Maybe they will. Maybe they will next week. I don't know.
We want to see what's in there. And then finally to round out, let's see, his last thing. Yeah. Tarka's, I mean, what was he thinking? Of all the people, you're going to take Jet Reno? She's not going to be missed.
I mean, first of all, she will be missed, but I mean,
but she's the one who could more quickly immediately blow their cover. So
circumstances called for her to be taken hostage.
Yeah, and by the way, somebody's got to do a security upgrade on Zora, because I'm sorry, but the little thing with here, put this on your arm.
Oh, cover up your life signs.
It'll cover up your life signs. Like, no, has anybody heard of a motion detector? Because I'm sorry, Zora
again, a Betazoid.
A Betazoid.
If we had a Betazoid, she would be like, no, there's 2 more people here than there should be.
Yeah.
Plus the mass of the ship increases for whatever they're going to do, travel or whatever. Now you've got this other. I suppose it's no different than having it in the docking bay, but
sure.
There's a lot of it's sort of convenient. This guy is smarter than the supercomputer on Discovery.
Right.
It's like
the sentient supercomputer on Discovery.
And then he takes Reno. So I'm just thinking, not your best move, but hey, let's see where this goes.
Wait a minute.
Well, I mean, again, it was better than her like causing a commotion and there being, because the scene after that, I'm like, what? Why isn't there any commotion? Why isn't security being called? Like,
we got to open with that on the next episode, because, by the way, Jet Reno would have life signs that could be detected by Zora.
Yeah, so, Zora could be like, there's a missing person.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, so we are going to shift gears here to talk about Picard right after the break, but most important thing that nobody has brought up yet in this week's Discovery.
I hope it's the Lower Decks reference.
Yes, we got the Lower Decks reference that the world has been waiting for. We didn't get hot banana, but we got steamed banana. And writers, my hat is off to you for that. So
deep cut.
I mean, that can't have been a coincidence, right?
Oh, hell no.
Okay.
Yeah. It's got to be somebody on Disco saw that or they read that early script and they were like, hot banana. It's going in. It's going in.
All right,
Because
we'll see you guys on the flip side. All right.
All right, we'll see you in a minute, Paul. All right. Yeah, I was so happy with that. Well, I think that does it for all the notes that I had. Other than remember, people, whenever you hear the title of an episode or the title of a movie spoken in that movie or episode, you got to give a golf clap. So,
Oh, you do the golf clap. I do. They said the thing.
Oh, you do that. Okay, no, I do a golf clap. So they got a golf clap on this episode.
You guys are astronauts on some sort of Star Trek.
So I did that. Mm-hmm. All right, everybody. So any of you who have not been in the queue yet to talk to us about Picard, make sure you hit the button or you call and you talk to Earl in the green room and he will hook you up. Otherwise, I know we're going to have some repeat callers, and I'm looking forward to that as well. Let's get some new faces in there too, though. But before we switch over to Picard, I just want to remind everybody, if you visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/missionlog, that gives you access to so many perks. You get access to our private Discord server. I almost said Disco server, which is fine too. I like a Disco server, but Discord. And that is fantastic. It's great. I promise I will get caught up there. Been away, had lousy internet for a week, so I will get caught up there. You also get exclusive content. Like we just had our extended interview with Nana Visitor, and then Norman and I have put up our extended cuts, our uncut versions of our discussion of DS9 and like what we left behind, exclusive to our Patreon, as well as exclusive swag, as well as early access and uncut access to our weekly episodes. There is so much there. Plus, more importantly, it's a community. People just hang out there. They chat on our Discord. There is so much going on. Be a part of that. Join us there. Patreon.com/missionlog. Look, it can run you as low as $1 a month. And if you sign up for a year, it's even less than $1 a month. So join us again, patreon.com/missionlog. Wow. It's that time.
To change my background.
Change your background. I love it. I love it. Okay, so it's time again for a recap. This one's slightly longer than the Disco recap, but not by much.
It's the first episode.
There's a lot to get through. But all right, here we go, if you'll allow me. So, Star Trek Picard, the Stargazer. There is a ship with a crew somewhere in space, taking an absolute walloping by something. It's chaos. And on the bridge are Captain Rios, Dr. Girardi, and a disheveled Picard who hears his name called by a familiar mechanical female voice just as he orders the ship's auto-destruct. Cut to 48 hours earlier at lovely Chateau Picard. It's the end of the harvest, and Picard and Laris have a moment of candor, bordering on intimacy, in which she asks if he is always running to the stars or away. The awkwardness is interrupted by Picard's own memory of his difficult childhood, his bond with his mother, his fear of his father, and his mother's admonition to look up to the stars when it's all too much to bear. And in those stars, at that very moment, very far away, a Starfleet ship encounters a thing, an anomaly that's green and scary. Where's everybody else? Well, Seven is on La Sirena doing kick-ass stuff, and her only companion is Holo Rios. Soji and Girardi are in the Beta Quadrant doing fancy stuff. Rios is in the area in his new command, the USS Stargazer, and picks up Girardi to investigate something important. Admiral Picard has just given a speech at the Academy, celebrating new cadets like Elnor, who happens to be the first full Romulan to go through. Commander Raffi is there too, and off to her assignment, partly mentoring Elnor. So the Stargazer and La Sirena are in the area to check out the anomaly, and there's a garbled, complex signal coming through asking for help from Picard. Picard has beamed himself over to Los Angeles, though. He's stopping in to say hello to Guinan, running a bar no less. He wants to talk about his love life, or lack thereof, and she's about the best listener he knows. In short order, he's back home in France, getting caught up on the anomaly that's transmitting his name. Starfleet wants him to check it out. So he heads off to a rendezvous with the Stargazer and some of his most recent crew, leaving Laris behind. On board and confronting the anomaly, Picard opens the channel and whoops, it's the Borg. Come on, the green light wasn't a tip-off? An all-new Borg ship emerges from the anomaly and is now faced with just about every Starfleet ship ever. It's a quiet standoff while Picard and his crew try to figure out what to do, which comes down to either fight or not fight. Too late. The Queen is coming and beaming right onto the Stargazer bridge to see Picard. She starts assimilating the ship and the rest of the fleet with it until Picard steps in to activate autodestruct. In that last second, the Queen addresses Picard and tells him to look up. Then it all blowed up real good. Awakening at his Chateau Solarium, where he remembered his mother, now practically a ruin, Picard finds everything around him has changed. It's darker, tonally. There are weapons on display everywhere. There's no Laris, but there is one of those creepy androids we saw when all hell broke loose last season. And there's another familiar voice calling out for Mon Capitaine. Oh, hello, Q. It's the end, but the trial never ends.
You know what I find wild?
What?
About this season going to be basically Q is, and I wrote an episode of Sci-Fi 5 that talked about this.
Yes.
But Q was like a weird afterthought that Gene came up with for the pilot episode of TNG because they couldn't decide if it was going to be an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours, and they went back and forth on that a lot. Right. Q was a filler. Like he was a character that Gene created as a filler. And this many years later, there's going to be an entire season, presumably based on this trial of the human species.
Does he not get tired of putting Picard on trial? Like literally, you did that, and then 7 years later, you did it again, and now 30 years later, you're doing it. Come on, Q, seriously. Like there is a whole universe to explore out there.
How do you know he's not messing with everybody else? Or that, okay, the Q continuum is a thing, though. We've seen other Qs. We've met other Qs.
Right.
What if this Q is just assigned to mess with Picard for the rest of his life? And all the other Qs are assigned to other people to mess with them.
Because he's like Trelane. He's like not a very good Q in that respect. The other's like, we're doing all this important stuff. We're world building. And we're like, you go mess with Picard. Just do that, and we'll check in with you later.
Which Trelane is arguably who Q is based on, although Gene never admitted it, and that's something that I talk about in that episode too. But
Indeed. So if you're not following Sci-Fi 5 at Sci-Fi 5 Pod, do it, and you can hear Holly and Earl and Norm and so many other people voices from our. Well, you're writing.
I'm writing. I don't do voiceover. I'm sorry, I'm not cool enough for that.
Yeah. Well, okay, come on. Yeah, you are cool. But all right. Excellent. Well, I have many thoughts on this episode, and I'm sure that you do too. But let's get right back to our callers because that's why we're here. And up first, drum roll, please, Valeria. All right, here we go. Valeria,
all right.
Thoughts about Picard?
Woo!
Lay it on us.
All right, so season 1 of Picard was my favorite of the new live action stuff.
What?
I feel very strong. I feel very strongly about Picard. Now, part of it ties into the fact that the first Star Trek that I have conscious memory of was going to see the 2009 movie in theaters. That was not my first contact with Star Trek, because my first contact with Star Trek was my dad watching the end of the episode that was airing that night, Rivals, while I was being born.
Wow.
Oh my God, you're a
baby. But Rivals aside, but I immediately got very attached to the Romulans, and oh no, they lost their planet. And so I've always wanted like post supernova Romulan content. So I was just like immediately on board for Picard. I was still in like season 1 or season 2 of TNG when season 1 aired.
Wow. Okay.
This is
Which-
where I'm coming from.
TNG is my first conscious memory. I'm 16 months older than TNG.
This
Wow.
is where I'm coming from coming into this.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of thoughts and figuring out how to sequence them. So the
This
world
is
of
why
Star
we're
Trek
in
is very big, and
Mhm.
Starfleet is just a very small part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very excited to have a completely non-Starfleet show. Like, yes, half the main cast was former Starfleet, but no one in that main cast in season 1 was currently in Starfleet.
True. Yeah.
Right.
And I was very excited about that. And we ended it with a ship full of non-Starfleet people looking like they were about to go off on non-Starfleet adventures. And I was very excited for that. With the experiences that Rios and Raffi have had with Starfleet, why are they back? Why is Picard back with Starfleet? And what could Elnor's motivation for joining Starfleet possibly be? I feel so massively betrayed.
Yeah.
I feel so massively betrayed from just the premise of these characters that they were given over the course of those 10 episodes. Like, where we find them just flies aside from Girardi and Soji. Everyone else, it's like, why? Why are you here?
Let's not forget that
And Saturn.
Girardi did murder her ex-boyfriend. And now she's
Well,
just
okay.
like,
He was found not guilty.
That actually goes directly to the other thing that I want to talk about, which is my speculation for where this season goes.
Okay. All right.
Because, so
It's just between us, so you can tell us.
this starts with the framework of my analysis for season 1, which is it's Nemesis meets what are little girls made of.
Okay. Good there.
I could write a dissertation on the parallels between What Are Little Girls Made Of and Picard season 1. But I will briefly touch on the fact that Girardi Maddox is just straight up Chapel Corby.
Oh.
Okay. I like this. I like where you're going with this. Yeah.
Since you mentioned that.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of pieces there.
I'm still sore about Maddox. I will always be sore about Maddox that they didn't bring back. And I don't know what the story was, but they didn't bring back the original actor. And
Right.
Yeah.
But so building on that framework of a TNG movie and a TOS episode, where I see season 2 going is pretty obvious. Like, we've got Borg and time travel, so we're playing with First Contact on the movie front. And then we could be going City on the Edge of Forever. But given Kurtzman's love of the animated series that shines through in all of the animated series references that come up in every single new show, what if we're going yesteryear?
Oh, you mean they have to kill a Sailot? Because
No!
I don't know if I'm here for that.
So like, yeah, I don't know exactly how the themes are going to play out, but like these are just themes that I'm looking out for in this season.
Okay. I think all of that is very fair. My concern, as always, with new Trek is that it has to be familiar, but it has to be different. And there are
Yes.
only so many themes to play with. And what I always want is I want the powers that be, writers, producers, to kind of look at the layout of the season and just go like, here's the message. Here's the important theme that we're dealing with. And not feel like, well, to make it Star Trek, we've got to fit in 50 other things that keep sort of telling the audience, like, see, we did this, see, we did this, see, we did this other thing, therefore you know it's Star Trek. It's very interesting that you mentioned the sort of the cast formation for the first season, none of them being Starfleet, none of them being currently Starfleet. That was a really cool perspective to bring to have that story.
But to that point, I think there's a reason why they've all, because he's having a conversation with Raffi and she says, she divulges that Picard is now the Chancellor of Starfleet Academy. So it's obviously something to do with him, because Raffi is also still a commander and she's later commanding the Excelsior, which is where Elnor goes to. Presumably the Excelsior is a training ship. They're talking about the Kobayashi Maru. Everybody had to have come back because of him.
Well, and the only one that I'm really just totally fine with is Seven. She's just out there doing the things that Seven does,
right.
Killing people and, running supplies. So that's fine. And the fact that she would show up where that anomaly is, the fact that she would answer the call, like that totally fits. That makes absolute sense. Raffi, because she was Starfleet, because we saw growth out of her in the last season, because she spent this time and kind of buried the hatchet with Picard. Okay, maybe there's missing story there that places her back at Starfleet. Rios is a little harder to swallow, and then Elnor just seems completely out of left field. Like, here, take this poor Romulan orphan and just, we don't know what to do with him. Just put him in Starfleet, get him a uniform because,
right? Yeah,
But there is sort of the production reality is, okay, we have to get everybody back together. But was it too easy a call to just throw them all in Starfleet uniforms?
Like I just have a hard time with why they got split up in the first place. Like,
sure.
Why was splitting them up to need to put them back together necessary? Especially Seven and Raffi, like the No Man's Land audio drama that came out from them last month really had me thinking that whatever happened, like Seven and Raffi would be in proximity to each other and not doing long distance. At the start of the season. So like, I'm just very confused about what's going on narratively here.
It is, you know what? I absolutely will give you that. It's a bit of a clunky setup. It is one of those things where it's just the show presumes, well, we have to get the band back together. And they do it all in this pilot, whereas I would have been fine if maybe we had discovered some of them elsewhere later, but for whatever reason they decided, like, nope, we're going to do it all right now. And some of that is a little harder to swallow.
It does feel a lot like a pilot too, because you were talking about how you guys are doing Caretaker on the non-live show, and like Caretaker is my favorite for a very good, because they set up the characters really well. This is the first episode of the second season. It's not a pilot, but it felt like a pilot.
Right.
And some of the ways in which the characters are involved feels unnatural, whereas like Voyager's my favorite because everything feels natural.
I wonder,
maybe except for Chakotay.
Yes. I wonder if that's a result, though, of kind of modern production technique where you do 10 episodes, you're gone for a year or more, and then you come back and do 10 episodes. You have to, is there this even kind of subconscious idea you have to reintroduce everything?
While also cramming in all these references. I mean,
right.
we saw the Deltons for like the first time since who knows when. Like,
yeah. But is it different when you're doing 26 episodes a season and you got 3.5, 4 months off? You feel like it's a little easier to say, like, yeah, they're where they were when we left off. They're fine,
right?
And
this is X amount of years later. We know that this takes place in 2401 because of the vintage on the wine bottles. So,
yeah. This is much later. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Valeria, I'm going to ask you if you got any final parting thought here, as we got some more callers to get to. And then, of course, we'll have opportunity to do this again.
John Delancey's just looking great.
Hey, yeah.
Loving that.
It's like $1 million. I think everybody agrees here with you. Definitely. By the way, Dominic, to you, Holly, with your love of Caretaker, Dominic says Holly just loves banjos. So, that's
100%.
Big
like
banjo fan.
Southern cooking or whatever.
Got so much time for banjos.
All right, Valeria, take care. We'll see you again soon. Okay.
See you soon.
Let's see here. So many comments about why was the band separated. That's something that Dave says. Well, at the end of the episode, they had a couple of years then to go off on their own.
Yeah.
Is Elnor joining Starfleet much different than Nog joining Starfleet?
No. Also, to that point, their uniforms are still wildly similar to what Nog wore.
Oh,
gray with the red yoke, and we don't see it very well, but they have the big pockets on their legs too.
Yeah, interesting.
So that's a nice. Right. I'm glad that they kept those the same. Obviously.
Yeah. Dave says there was something very Knott's Berry Farm about Caretaker.
Okay, but listen, the reason why it's my favorite though is because each character, except for Chakotay, is introduced really well, and you learn about them. You learn what you need to know about them very quickly.
Yeah.
And then we have the context of the entire series in the first episode.
I cannot wait for you to listen to this week's mission log, and then we chat about it sometime.
I have a lot of thoughts. I'm all over the place. Like Voyager is not my favorite series, but it's got my favorite pilot and my favorite episode of all time. I'm very all over the place, and I have reasons for everything. But I digress because this is not about Voyager.
Look, Norman already got the gig. Okay. All right, let's bring in our next caller. We have Chris, who has been standing by.
At Chateau Picard.
At Chateau Picard. Welcome back, Chris. All right.
How hard you try.
All right. It's Picard time. What do you got for us?
Yeah, this was I really liked it. I thought it was a really good opener to what you guys said. I would have liked to seen what seems to be the 2.5 or 1.5, 2 years in between the end of 1 and the start of 2. Mm-hmm. But everyone seemed to be in a place that I believe, to the point that, like, I know everyone, or a lot of people have been talking about, they want like a Stargazer spinoff with Rios and them, and that's cool, that's great. But really, the spinoff I want is the Girardi and Soji Variety Hour. Like, their chemistry they had at that, ambassador, whatever party that was just more of them together, please.
All right, I want to know where they shot that, because it was a cool location.
It's some top of some building in LA.
In LA, not Toronto. Oh no, they shoot everything LA here. Of course,
shoot LA. Yeah,
they shoot LA for Picard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
They're not going to make him travel that far.
No, that was his call. Yeah. So I did love that. I love just Girardi's discomfort at being flirted with. I thought the voice around that was perfect. And they were great together. So it's nice to see Soji back for sure. By the way, speaking of people who are there or people who aren't there, can I just say, what the hell happened to Jaban?
We don't know. It's just a mention that it's been, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rip Jaban, pour one out. Like, man, damn.
Let's pour one out at 10 forward with Guinan.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what else we get out of Guinan, because I feel like this is another one of those where, are they going to use the character well, Or are they just going to use the character as that thing to sort of show the audience, look, it's all your TNG favorites because here's Guinan, and we couldn't think of anything else to do other than bartender.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really shaky on that too, especially given how she was asked to be on the show, which was lovely on The View when he was on Sir Patrick was on for promotion of the first season. I cried full on, but it also felt like it was just going to be maybe like an appearance or a cameo versus her being like an integral part of the story. But I'm hoping that she's going to be an integral part of the story. I mean, the fact that she still has a bar that is, I don't know, weird and divey, right?
It's just also. It's just strange. I mean, it's been a long time since she was the bartender on the Enterprise.
Right.
And Guinan is an interesting character from an interesting species. That
Elarians are super interesting.
Yeah, have all these other aspects and talents. It's like, is that really, like, would the audience not get it?
Right.
Unless she's a bartender.
There's also, guys, there's something super out of place when Picard beams in, too. Mm-hmm. There's this thing behind him when he beams in that looks very Cardassian, and a bunch of people saw it in the preview, and I know exactly what it is.
Go ahead and say it, because so do I.
Trek movie was like, what is this? And I was like, 100% that it was a fixture at Star Trek The Experience in Las Vegas to hold t-shirts.
Yes.
And there's two of them in the archive, and I jammed them together to hold a roll of bubble wrap. And it was my bubble wrap dispenser. And I don't know why in God's name they were like, yeah, let's put this giant, weird slightly Cardassian looking thing. Literally, guys, that's from The Experience.
I love that so much.
It's so weird.
I love it so much. So I do, I didn't just bring up Zhaban just because I want to know where he is, but I also, like, that's another one of those choices where going into the new season, I feel like everybody who saw season 1, we all said, like, oh, Laris and Zhaban, they're so cool. There's so much more to those characters. This is great. We would like to see more of them, please. And then you come up to the new season, one of them's dead, and there's this quasi-manufactured, almost romantic scene. And like, I get it. Hey, they're both very attractive. They spend a lot of time together. But it just felt a bit out of place for me.
Yeah, I will say that arc is the one that I felt most needed. Like, we needed to see the in-between time jump. Yep. Everyone else, I believe everyone else ended up where they were. I need to see that year and a half. I need to see what happened to Zhaban. I need to see, have they talked about this at all before now? Like, has this been long brewing? Did she just bring it up that night? Like, that one needed more context, definitely.
Yep. I did love her line, though, talking about him being gone and how Romulans process this differently from other species, especially from humans. We love deeply, and then we honor that love by loving again, even more deeply still.
Yes. It's a great line.
It was so beautiful. It was so lovely. And Romulans who for such a long time were written as, the two-dimensional villain of the week, but like Klingons, like Cardassians, like other characters, the longer you spend with them in universe, they get to have nuance and they get to have depth. And for as much as we learned about Klingon opera or about Cardassian literature, having a moment like this, it's sort of the heart and soul of Romulans, I thought was really nice. What else you got for us, Chris?
I do have one nitpick. I have one tiny
nitpick. Bring it.
Okay,
you're allowed more than one, but
all right.
yes.
And this actually happens both in Discovery and in this episode of Picard. Is every time they show Starfleet Academy, it's on the wrong side. It's on the Marin side and not the San Francisco side.
It is. It's on the north side. They always show it as on the north side. Yeah.
It's like, that's not where San Francisco is, guys.
No, it's not. It's not. What's so funny is that I've been up to San Francisco a couple of times in the last few months because I'm working on a project up there. And one of the guys from Star Trek Online, he grew up there. Star Trek Online is based in that area. Mm-hmm. And we went on a little trip and he took me down like to where it is. And yeah, it's way on the other side. It's like not Nope, that's not really San Francisco.
It's like they got the wrong plate in the VFX house. Like they went out and just messed it up, but they just keep copy pasting it because nobody told them. Like, I don't know.
Oh no. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so 10 years from now, when they do the special director's cut edition, somebody will go back in and they'll flip that plate. Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. Okay, that's pretty funny. All right, Chris. Well, thanks so much, and we'll say goodbye for now, and then we'll catch you again.
All right, see you, man.
All right.
See ya.
Take care. And coming back for round 2, because he just can't stand to be away from us, it's Alan. Alan, welcome back. It's been so
Monday
long.
Night. Yeah.
It's been so long. All right. So
I was telling the green room guys that in the past 48 hours, I've been through basically a tornado and a blizzard. So this is
whoa.
This is relaxing for me. So this is great.
Wow.
I'm sorry. Like I hear the horror stories of you guys in those areas, and then John and I are in Southern California.
Yeah.
Like I'm roasting in this Picard sweater right now. I'm so sorry that you guys are in.
Hey, don't jinx it. We have our own issues out here, okay?
Yeah.
Have earthquakes.
I'm not trading war stories on natural disasters.
I mean, it got down to 60 degrees yesterday, and I was wearing fleece leggings and complaining about how cold I was.
Oh, the pain, the indignity of it all.
The thing is, it was like in the 70s a little while ago, and honestly, that's probably part of the problem because it's not supposed to be that way at the end of February and the beginning of March. That's, the climate is changing for some weird, unexplained reason.
Completely baffling. Who knows?
Who could have predicted that?
Yeah. So, Alan, thoughts about Picard tonight?
Oh yeah, that show. No, I solid opening. It was, I don't know, in a way, it was a little bit weird to start en media res, knowing that we would. I appreciated the fact that it was sort of like, let's show you where we end up and then we'll work our way back to it. It's very cinematic, but it also, I mean, not that there was too much confusion about who was coming through the space void, but obviously, when you've got a Borg on the bridge in the first scene, and then for the next 50 minutes, everyone's like, I don't know who it could be. It was a little.
It was green, and we heard robot voices.
Yeah,
okay,
green, multiple robot voices.
Yeah,
I feel like the reason they're confused is because presumably the Borg have been destroyed. They even have a conversation about that. Like they are functionally dismantled. Yeah, right.
They brought up the charter, and the Borg aren't litigious, so
but they do love a dramatic entrance.
Oh,
so yeah. And so the Borg Queen looks very different. And
that helmet is so cool.
The helmet.
God, I hope somebody cosplays that.
Did you get that? Did you like really zoom in and take a look? Like there's like moving parts within that. That was
very intricate.
Cool.
Yeah, there's gears and stuff moving in there. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and please correct me here because, I have just now started my Voyager rewatch, and I know that we had, our introduction to the Borg Queen in First Contact. Borg Queen is a being that can sort of be recreated, reinvented by the collective.
Yes, and they basically had to do that because in Voyager.
I know we have a different actor.
We have two of the same.
Well, you have Alice Krieg.
She plays it at some point.
Susanna Thompson, right?
And then Susanna play. Yeah. So the Borg Queen is an entity that is can be switched up in terms of the body that it's in, essentially.
Got it.
Interestingly enough, she always looks almost exactly the same. Right?
Always a lady.
Yeah.
All She's not like a trill, or it's like a different person.
Right.
Every time.
Oh, I'm the Borg Queen.
No, they try to make her look very, very similar, which, given what they could do with that, like she doesn't need to look the same.
Well, hey, if you have a good look, you stick with it.
I mean,
you cultivate those things.
I remember seeing her for the first time in First Contact and being just horrified. I was like 10 years old and was like, oh my God. The Borg still scare the crap out of me.
Sure,
Like,
they should.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm very curious to see where we go with this Borg Queen because different look and we don't know exactly what she or they are up to because I was having this conversation with someone. She shows up on the bridge and wants power, presumably just actual physical power. Although their ship had enough wherewithal to punch a hole in the shield just to beam her over.
Right.
And then she goes about taking over the computers of not just the Stargazer, but the entire fleet. So, yeah, there's clearly some other purpose.
Can we talk about the fleet too?
Let's talk about the fleet real
Oh
quick.
my
yeah,
God.
yeah.
So, so I watched the episode twice. The first time I watched it, Picard makes a comment when he gets onto the bridge of the Stargazer about refits, and I was like, "Is this the same is this the same
Right.
Stargazer? It's the same Excelsior that did they
Well,
but no, the registry numbers are different." So when I watched it again, I was like, "Oh, these are not refits. The registry numbers are different." So Picard Stargazer, the registry number was NCC 2893. The new one has sort of a nod to that. It's 82893.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
But we see the Excelsior, which is a little bit different. The slinky neck is gone, which I love because I hate that ship. There's a mention, the Grissom. So, we
Sulu.
see that in one of the films.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a Sulu. So, and a lot of these ships are suddenly canon, but they're from Star Trek Online. And a lot of them were designed by Thomas Maroney. And if you don't follow Thomas Maroney on Twitter, you should, because he's giving a lot of really cool information about those ships.
That's cool. Yeah, I was glad to see a more diverse fleet. Glad to see, I always like ship names, and I particularly like historic ship names.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little like, okay, yeah, you give me a Sulu, you give me a Grissom. That's cool because named after Virgil I. Gus Grissom. I love that. Do I need another Excelsior? Do I need another Stargazer? Well, for Picard, yes, we do. I'd like to see some other interesting new and historic names in there. I know it's a little late in the production because this was completed a long time ago. I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out right now. We should have a USS Kiev or a USS Zelensky.
There you go.
There, I said it. All right.
Yep. And I was reading on the wiki, grain of salt, whatever, that somewhere in the background of the departure scene from the Academy, there's some sort of reference to USS Leon de Grance, which was Patrick's character from Excalibur, correct?
Oh, fun!
Oh, that's cool.
I didn't catch that one.
That's cool.
I would not have caught it either. I'm gonna have to do a rewatch and see where it's probably like, one of those things in the background that is barely visible, but yeah, apparently it's there because fandom wouldn't lie to us.
Well, by the way, Nick in the chat is saying, also from Cryptic, we have the names. David Blass gave us the full list. And I think he's saying that, I don't know if he is putting in a vote for one or is saying that it exists, USS Okuda. Which totally makes sense. And then there are others coming up. It's like, what about USS Kirk? What about USS Pike? That's what I don't want, because I don't want every single reference in Star Trek to be a Star Trek reference.
And then my dad talking about the USS Amos.
Okay, well, the USS Amos is critical. That is critical.
It's not even canon. It didn't make it into the episode. It wasn't this episode. It was the pilot episode of Discovery that it was designed for, and then did not make it.
Didn't make it. Okay, but I love I want to mix up the real world historical references with the in-universe stuff. So
Aaron Harvey says USS Eric's.
Oh yeah, well, that one has a third nacelle.
Yes.
There you go.
It's the only ship where I'll accept a third nacelle.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even numbers only.
Yeah. Alan, we got one more caller, but any last thoughts before we jump?
Well, just two quick things. Loved the use of diegetic music, both time is on my side, and the Edith Piaf song that I can't pronounce because I didn't take French.
The one from Inception.
Yep. Yeah. Which
the
is
wake up song.
No, I regret nothing. which is awesome, because I think that sort of, again, with Q, one of his things in Tapestry was all about Picard's regrets. So maybe we'll be revisiting that topic as well. But yeah, otherwise, love the show, love the fleet, the ships, the uniforms look great, and I'm somewhat nervous about delving into yet another Star Trek dystopia, but we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, indeed. We will. All right, Alan, thank you so much for your comments tonight, and we will see you soon, my friend.
Yes, have a good one.
All right.
Going back to LA 2024, and I'm very curious as to whether or not we will see the Bell riots or if they don't happen in this timeline.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know.
All right, well, wrapping it up tonight, the man who has spent so much time in the Earl Green room, got to hear all the stories. But Paul, final thoughts for tonight about Picard.
Well, let's imagine. Okay, so Guinan was alive a couple hundred years ago on Earth.
Yeah.
Who says she's not here now, and that Picard runs into her here? How great would that be?
Oh, yeah.
Timey-wimey, man.
Yeah, I would almost think that that's a foregone conclusion, because she was there in the late 19th century, and there was no indication that she was leaving. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what happened between that time zero are the two episodes where we see her on.
So that means she would have met him twice, before and after she was on a bartender on the Enterprise. How amazingly weird would that have been to try and keep that straight when she was on the Enterprise?
Right.
I know what happened before and I know what happens after, but in between, I got to pretend I don't know anything.
Yeah, that's rough.
That was the green room commentary that we're on. I just got 2 words: Orla Brady. Oh my God. What the two of them together, that chemistry is so genuine and so unbelievable. It just set the tone for the season. Whatever happens, it's just like we always have that moment between those two actors. Yeah. Wow, is that amazing?
So you're here for it. You're here. All right. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's Picard. I'm all in. I mean, you got romance on 2 shows. You got the alien romance, and you got the whatever this. I guess this is technically Alien too.
Well, let me ask you this though, Paul, because this has always been sort of a trope and a problem with Star Trek. You look at all the captains, and even the ones that have managed to have, or they introduce a somewhat functional relationship there, it falls apart. Like it always comes apart because their duty is to the ship. Their duty is to their duty. It is to Starfleet. It is to the Wanderlust or whatever. Like, are you satisfied if Picard rides off into the sunset with his, Romulan babe?
Would I be satisfied? Absolutely. Okay. If a man conquers, that trial and it ends a different way than what Q suspects it's going to be, absolutely. I think it would be heaven for him to do that, to finally understand what life's about other than service to the ship and Starfleet. He deserves it. He doesn't need to be going chasing yet another Borg queen.
No. So, I mean, it only took him nearly 100 years and an artificial body, and plus, to finally get there. Yeah.
How long is he going to be around now? Right? Does this body degenerate?
Did you guys notice that when he crosses over into this alternate universe, he seems slower? Is he still an AI?
Yeah. Okay. Because they said, Yeah. I mean, they did say, the golem that he is transfer it into at the end of season 1. It will
Right.
age normally. He'll have the same lifespan, because he even makes some quip like, you couldn't give me 10 more years or
Right.
something, So presumably that is still whatever happens and wherever he is and reawakened
road-
by Q.
Q saying like the road less or not traveled or whatever, like
Mhm.
even if that road led him down a path in which he's not put into a golem.
Mm-hmm. He's still aging at the same rate.
He is a golem now because he's crossed over from a universe.
Yeah, but he's still aging at the same rate. So,
right.
Yeah. By the way, not to change topics too drastically here, but Nick did post a link to that list in our chat. So anybody who is hearing this later or wants to go look at it right now, you can click on that list and get all of the ships that were created for that encounter. And I'm sorry, and we are just like right up against the clock here, but Paul, your last thought, please.
Watch the Ready Room as Patrick Stewart himself lays out what should be the next Star Trek experience. As he says, when you walk on the Stargazer, I wanted all of our fans to see it. Would that be cool or what?
Okay. All right.
Thanks for the hour and a half. Good luck for the next 3 weeks.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. All right. We'll see you soon.
Peace out. See you guys.
All right.
And my Picard sweater, guys, by the way, is Romulan from the first season. It's the Destroyer. It's got the card on the back.
So
and
cool.
it is a Cherry Tree exclusive. So if you guys want it, you guys can seek out Cherry Tree, who is an official licensee of Star Trek, and they are selling this on their website.
Very cool. I love it. And Ellie, you're always themed appropriately.
It's a really deep cut, right? Because you would not suspect that this is. Anyways, it is.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, with that, Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production on Mission Log and Mission Log Live provided by the intergalactic Earl Green. Be sure to visit, we did finally break the barrier. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry Podcasts. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Special thank you, as always, to co-host Holly Amos. Fantastic here on the live show. Thank you to everyone who joined us live or later. Stay safe, stay healthy. We will see you next week where we are talking more Disco and Picard.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.